Hello and welcome to the New York Jewish Film Festival. This festival is presented by the Jewish Museum and Lincoln Center. My name is Lisa Collins and I'm a member of the selection team for this year's festival. And I'm happy to welcome Gülseren Sengezer, the filmmaker of Kindertransports to Sweden, a really terrific movie that's a highlight of in our slate of many great films. But this film is particularly moving and elegant, and one that we hope everybody will have a chance to really take in and have it move with them for months and months and years, perhaps, as the film speaks so loudly in a gentle way. And with that, I would love for Gülseren, for you to tell us a little bit about your film and and as well as a little bit about yourself as a filmmaker at this point.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you first for having me.
Thank you.
It's a
Yes.
great pleasure for me. I am a German-Swedish filmmaker settled in Stockholm, and I have Kurdish roots and have moved to Sweden 7 years before. So I'm working and living here in Sweden, and that documentary is my first big film project here in Sweden, and the film recounts the fate of four Jewish children that were sent on their own to Sweden by their parents with the so-called Kindertransports in order to save their lives from the terror of the Nazis. And at the end of 1938 until 1940, roundabout or between 70,000 and 20,000 children have been sent abroad with that rescue action, and about 10,000 of them ended up in the in Great Britain, and 500 in Sweden. And my film tries to trace the suffering of those witnesses, what it meant to be sent to a foreign country without parents, without knowing the language, without no boundaries in that country. So what that trauma caused in their lives. So that is the subject of my documentary.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And there is so much, so many different layers of trauma explored, and with such patience and understanding. And I think it allows the audience to really empathize and engage with these people who are really still holding on so deeply to these traumas. What for you was something that you kept finding in common with each of these very different souls from very different backgrounds, but something that you found, you know, in the middle of an interview, you'd think, wow, this is a really something that's weaves through, we've woven through so many lives.
Very interesting question. I think they cope the trauma in different ways, but what I would say was in common was the search for identity. The question, who am I? Or do I like to be that, what I'm supposed to be? So that was on different levels, I think the same question that was bothering them all. How much Jewish do I want to be, or am I Jewish, or what am I? So maybe it is that what is common for all of them, I would say.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and how how comfortable or uncomfortable they felt in articulating this very real Jewishness in all of these unsafe places for them. I think that the film speaks very, I don't know, compassionately about that, and allows them to feel what they need to feel. Um, and with that, there were so many different stories that each of them shared about these feelings of anti-Semitism and battling it, or trying to subvert it, or even take it into their own um, souls and not realizing it consciously or unconsciously. Uh, Maybe you could share one of the stories that really struck you as whether or not painful or pleasurable, you know, in whether or not they were trying to be their own heroes, you know, how they were trying to survive. Maybe you could share which one of those stories, even if whether in the film or not, that you heard that really struck you.
You know, this question reminds me a little bit to the question to a parent, which of your children do you love most or like most? But all of the stories touched me very deep. But one story touched me on a different way, and that was Herta, one of the witnesses that was sent to Sweden when she was just 4 years old. And the fact that she doesn't have too much memories about her family, about her background, about her past, that was very painful for her. And she described it as a big, big emptiness that she was not able to fill her whole life until today. And that was very painful to hear. And that was a little bit different than the painful stories of the others, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I feel like you really did such, um, I guess again, I'm using the word patient and compassionate filming. What sort of environment do you have to create on set to allow someone like her to feel comfortable enough to share, or also while you're editing, are there different things that you put into your practice, or you and your team put into their practice, so that you could allow um, you know, the space for these people to
Mhm.
mourn and confess?
I think I can start with the size of our team. It was just me and the
Oh.
director photographer, so the
Wow.
cameraman. So we were just two persons doing the
Hmm.
shooting, and um, and then I think it's very complex. Also, how to be able to create such a situation that interviews can open their hearts and tell their stories and tell what their pain. So it is. I think maybe it's first a matter of to gain uh, um, the trust of of the person.
Hmm.
And how do you do this? I talked a lot of with them before the shooting, and I think it's all also the point that you have to be authentic and also to be human while you are doing your interviews, and show also empathy, but also patience. So and then it is yeah, I think it's something between two persons. If you
Hmm.
talking with someone, I think you understand very quickly if you can trust that person. Is that person reliable? Is this person understanding my feelings? And then I'm working in that field, or I'm also a journalist and working in for 20 years now, and I did a lot of
Hmm.
interviews. And my experience is that if someone has decided to tell his story or her story, that is painful, then they want to be asked also about that things. And I see it as my duty when someone is accepting an interview about that topic that I have to ask the painful questions, the uncomfortable questions. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not just
Mm-hmm.
it's maybe the opposite of empathy. It's also I'm challenging them
Yes.
also.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Were you able to share the film with any of them afterwards? Were they able to watch it, or
Yes, sure,
see
they
it?
watch it.
And
Oh,
yeah, and if you could
sorry.
talk about their no, that's total conversation, all good. Yeah, if you could share with me a little bit of their reactions,
Mm.
feedback, thoughts.
Um, I decided to send them the film before any launching, any before it became public. So
Mm-hmm.
I somehow I was sure that there will be no critics or that they will accept like it is. But I wanted to be sure because it's their story and there are some maybe controversial
Mm-hmm.
points in the film that I wanted to be sure 100% that they not are
Mm-hmm.
regretting have said this. And the reaction was fantastic. They liked the film, and um, I can tell you that Hans, one of the witnesses in the film, maybe he's watching the film once a month and always
Wow.
calling me after that
Wow.
and telling me it's that he's so thankful for the film and that he's has always a great pleasure to watch the film. Even maybe he watched it 50 times. I don't know how many times it was, but it's also for me as a filmmaker great to hear that he's fine with that. What he told me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it feels like for his story, this because he had so it was hard to find resolution given that he pushed away, got rid of pictures, pushed away this and that,
exactly.
and himself had to deal with his own internal, eh, hard to explain to himself, um, anti-Semitism because of trying to fight and be accepted. I think
Exactly.
that the film seems to must have, I was wondering if it formed some sort of a resolution for him. Maybe that's, we should hope maybe that also added to a piece of his closure, or and an opening on the topic for him. So
Yes,
I think.
I hope so too. But I have the feeling that he's quite fine with his thoughts and how he's dealing all of that. He's
Hmm.
even there is pain, even there is a conflict inside him, a dilemma maybe, but he's fine with that. So he can handle that. I think he's a very smart person. So he's very flexible with his mind, with his ideas and thoughts. So I think he managed that situation good somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's Gertrude. How do you pronounce her name?
Gertraud.
Gertrude.
Gertraud.
Yes, yes. She I found sort of fascinating in so many. I mean, all of them. They all had these amazing dimensions. Very hard to say who and what, but I know that those stories where she was speaking about how, um, the teachers would say, wouldn't pick on her, for example, even though she'd have the answer, and so she'd have to create this game
Mhm.
with herself, or her foster parents would introduce her as their Jewish child, or, and how she was looking in the mirror to see, maybe I am black, maybe I am, maybe how I'm, because I'm different and I'm treated with this otherness and I look a bit other. And I found, being black African American, I found such a an important connection, uh, there with her story. And I feel like the one thing about these stories is that they're so universal about um, otherness and how people sort of have to reconcile being considered the other and what happens in these circumstances. So I guess I wanted to speak about what your film talks about in the past and yet what we're seeing today currently. And how do you feel your film is its relevance, I would say, to the times we're in?
My wish was to express between the lines also to reflect the situation now, how migrants are treated, how it is to be different. So that is great when there was a moment of identification for you too. So I think it's not the film or the witnesses. They didn't want. It's a universal story of fleeing, of being suppressed, of being yeah. Yeah, discrimination of all of these things. So I think that topics are quite, also, how do you say, they are relevant also for
Yeah.
today. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And even including so much with the displacement of children and refugees, and people who are just trying to get a better life, and um,
exactly. Yeah.
yet who are going through these things. Um, yes,
I
you
want
were
to
about to
add
say something?
one thing. When I started my research, it was 2015. So it was at that time when all the refugees from Syria and the Middle East wanted to come to Europe. So and during the interviews, the witnesses themselves referred to the situation of the people. So they felt so much empathy for them, and they felt so sad and sorry for the situation of those refugees, and they made comparisons to their own situation, that at that time no one didn't want them either. So it was yeah, that
Hmm.
was, so we were surrounded by this idea that it is not over. It's
Right. Very. It's very contemporary. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And did you find that this story seems to be not as not that they're trying to say that there are not as many stories about Sweden out there, and this sort of like whether the relationship with um, its Jewish citizens um, that were the well, particularly that the small population that is there now, and the anti-Semitism and all these different things that they've reckoned with themselves, and or taking in these children. I'm just curious whether or not you found resistance in telling this story, or were people supportive in your research and gathering? And is this more of something from a dark past
Mm.
that people have found hard to reckon with?
Mm.
I hope that question was clear. Sorry, I stumbled
Yeah,
through.
as I understand, you want to know if this is a hidden
Yeah.
topic, or if there's a kind of denial or something like that in the
Yes.
Swedish society.
Yeah.
No, no, I cannot say that. And there was no resistance for my research, against my research. But it's not easy to talk about the relation of the Swedes and their past in terms of anti-Semitism, because first I want to say that I know, as far as I know, the first academic research was published in 1996. So almost 60 years later, after the first children came to Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
So what the reason therefore is, I don't know. I also noticed that the media at that time didn't cover that big event that much, like it has been done in Great Britain, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, I know just about one picture that was taken during the arrival of the children, and then I'm not a historian, so my knowledge about the
Right.
Swedish history is very limited. But as far as I understand the discourse, it is there is a lag, so there is a gap. So what was the relation, or there were anti-Semitic attitudes and feelings in the Swedish society, but how much these they were leading to policy that was very restrictive,
Mm-hmm.
actually, against Jewish refugees. That is not so clear. So I don't know if there's a denial, if there are what it is.
Yeah.
But even the scientists say we need more research about
Research.
that. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I had only thought before sort of watching this movie and everything that it was more about an open arms situation, where things were good and welcoming. Again, I'm not a historian on it, so I sort of just knew the cursory thoughts, about Sweden and its welcoming of
Yeah.
of these Jewish kids, and the not sort of pushing away Nazis, um, in terms of things. But then one late night, I was sort of going through the television, and I catch this part of this Ingmar Bergman film, and it's actually a a heroic Jewish like puppeteer who saves these two kids from their really like super strict abusive Gentile stepfather. And I watched a scene, and there was so much I saw so much anti-Semitism in this sort of interaction that
Mhm.
he has with them, and it really reminded me of the film and all that these people that you interviewed, so many things that they said, and sort of really opened my eyes. So I think
Mm.
the thing about your film is that it keeps going, it keeps sort of teaching and opening you to various things. And speaking of which, were there any filmmakers' works who are of an influence to you?
Yes. Um, Concerning my film, it is Jan Arthus Bertrand. Maybe you know him. He made the great documentary Human.
Mm.
It's a great documentary about. I think he was in every corner of the world interviewed. You feel that he had interviewed the whole world about their lives and what life means to them. And it was a great inspiration for me. Also, in terms of film aesthetics,
Mm.
because he has also interview situation and then long shootings, landscape shootings.
Okay, great.
There I understand it works. It's not bothering. It's the opposite. You feel much more when
Yeah.
when it's minimalistic, I think.
Yes. Yes. I did find there's so much beautiful shooting in your work, um, and there's something sort of haunting about these really harrowing stories of excruciating pain, and then this beauty and the field and the open, and sort of trying to deal with both. But how was that a part of your aesthetic going in, that you wanted to really also capture the beauty that these four individuals are living in, or just talk about perhaps that
Yeah,
choice?
my, my idea was to translate how can I say, the inner landscapes of that,
Mm.
of those witnesses into outer landscape, and um, landscape images. So the nature is always beauty. So I intended in the beginning, before we start with the editing, to add also some historical footage. But then we noticed, uh, as with that way, the film is expressing much more feelings than when we had choose to put in some archive material footage in it. So it was intended from the beginning, and 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 that was my vision, my artistic vision, to express the inner world of that witnesses with that way.
Great. And I also found like the sound design was very, I mean, minimal and clear, but very evocative. Were you, um, did you spend a lot of time working on that, or just making sure that it was right, or being, how did that go? Everything was so precise.
Uh, to be honest, no, we did not spend too much time because my focus was just to have some highlights and not to put too much in it, and to work with the sound, nature sound,
Yes.
bird sounds and wind and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Even when the subjects, even when they each feel emotional, you start to hear whether or not it's an almost cry or them clearing their throat. It's all very
Ah, you mean
clear.
the sound of the interviews, or do you
Oh
mean
yeah, all of
sound
the above.
design?
Yeah, 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 all of the above, I guess. But the
Mhm.
sound of the interviews and the sound of nature, I thought that they were just very well done, like clean and crisp, but very um, evocative.
Happy to hear this.
That's great. And yeah, so that was something rather special. And I guess one thing I would love to find out about is, what do you feel maybe these stories all say about, in just in your own thoughts, resilience, the ability to survive, and you can tie it to your own background or not, or however you feel.
um, my opinion is that all of those witnesses, that that they have very strong personality, and that they cope with all that trauma in that way. And um, and I was thinking a lot of times, how did they manage that? How could they go on in their lives? And I think what was common in all those interviews or stories concerning that topic, it is that they tried not to think too much about their past. They were all looking into the future, and to build up a new future, new life, a family, and maybe that was helping them to build up a stronger resilience, and to go on in their lives. And um, connected to my background, I have Kurdish roots, as I told you. So for me, now it's difficult because I try. It's very difficult for me to close a chapter. You know what I mean? The suppressing and all what is happening to
Sure.
the Kurdish people is ongoing. So there's not an end that you can
Yeah.
watch back and try to analyze and try to start to cope with the injustice and all what is happening. So it's still happening. So that's why it's not easy to for me to learn from that those witnesses how to cope that situation, not to be accepted, not to be not not as all that discrimination and all the things that happening to the Kurdish people.
Yes, yes,
I don't
yes.
know if this was clear, but
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like it's on a continuum, you know.
exactly, yeah.
Um, One thing I just should have asked you quickly at the start, maybe, if you could quickly say, how did you land upon these?
Quickly,
I should have asked.
I I want to tell it briefly. As I told you, I came to Sweden 7 years ago, and then I started to learn Swedish in a language course. And at the end of that course, we read a book. I don't know, did I get your question right? Or
Yeah, yes, yes, yes,
yes, yes.
yes. Hmm.
Okay, I will start from from you. So I came to Sweden 7 years before, and I went to a language course and tried to learn Swedish. And there we read a book about Otto, one of that 500 children that came with the Kindertransports to Sweden. And I was so touched by his story, and then I could not forget that story. And I started with my research at that point, and I wanted to know if there are still witnesses alive and how that went for them, and how did they handle the situation, how their life was. And then in the beginning I thought it's hopeless to find some witnesses because it was so they had reached a certain age, so due to health conditions it was not easy to make interviews with them. Some didn't want to tell their stories to a public, and in 2 or 3 cases, unfortunately, the witnesses died. And that was very sad, to call someone that you talked a few weeks ago and no one is replying. So, and it was not for me just that a human being has passed away. It was also that a witness of history has passed away. So that was very sad. But this is how I started with the whole 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. 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 Great, great, great. And I guess as we come to a close, I'll just ask you, well, one, you did, this film did win an award already at a film festival. Is that correct? I'm just wondering about, as far as you know, its future. And again, thanking you and congratulating you for being part of our slate of the
Thank
New York Jewish Film Festival. So, are there what might be your additional plans with the film, and if you know, if those are unsure, if you have any other projects you'd like to speak
you.
about. Mm-hmm.
I want to thank the New York Jewish Film Festival that they have chosen my film. I feel very honored. The project with my film, it's due to the pandemic situation. It's a little bit difficult now when it comes to Germany. We are planning, also it is, they will launch it in the cinemas, but we have to wait. We don't know. We have postponed it a few times, so I hope it will be screened maybe in spring or summer. I don't know. And then I have a US distributor,
Oh,
but
great.
we don't have a contract till now, so I cannot tell you more than this.
That's okay.
uh,
Mhm.
so yes, and then I hope that the film will make his journey in the United States, and that
Yes,
as much as many people will watch this film to learn
yes, yes.
from a neglected chapter of the Swedish history.
That's right. That's right. Well, we hope that we're going to be a significant part of the journey of this film, and are just again appreciative that you're sharing it with us, and that we have the opportunity to share it with our audiences. So, thank you,
Thank you
Gülseren.
very much, Lisa.
I think that just about does it, and Happy New Year again.
Thank you too. Thank you
Yes,
very much for
yes.
having me.
Yes, thank you.